Welcome to the movie recap. Abraham Lincoln. Vampire Hunter is a 2012 American supernatural horror action film directed by Timur Bekmambetov and based on the novel of the same name by Seth Graham Smith, depicting a fictionalized history of the American Civil War with the eponymous 16th President of the United States reimagined as having a secret identity as a lifelong vampire hunter fighting against a caste of vampiric slave owners. Benjamin Walker stars as Abraham Lincoln with supporting roles by Dominic Cooper, Anthony Mackie, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Rufus Sewell, and Martin Kasokis. The film was produced by Tim Burton, Bekmambetov, and Jim Lemley, with Simon Kinberg as an executive producer. Filming began in Louisiana in March 2011 and the film was released in Real D 3D on June 20, 2012 in the United Kingdom and June 22, 2012 in the United States. The film received mixed reviews, with critics praising the visual style, action sequences, originality, Walker's performance and Henry Jackman's musical score, but criticism was aimed at its screenplay, the overly serious and inconsistent tone, overuse of CGI, and pacing. The film also failed to meet expectations at the box office, grossing $116 million worldwide against the budget of $69.99 million. Let's go to the movie content. In 1818, Abraham Lincoln lives in Indiana with his parents, Nancy and Thomas, who works at a plantation owned by Jack Bartz. There, Lincoln befriends a young African-American boy, William Johnson, and intervenes when he sees Johnson being beaten by a slaver. Because of his son's actions, Thomas is fired. That night, Lincoln sees Bartz break into his house and attack Nancy. She falls ill the following day, and dies shortly afterwards. Thomas tells Lincoln that Bartz poisoned Nancy. 9 years later, Lincoln decides to get revenge against Bartz. He attacks Bartz at the docks, but Bartz, who is actually a vampire, overpowers him. However, before Bartz can kill him, Lincoln is rescued by Henry Sturgis. Sturgis explains that vampires exist, and offers to teach Lincoln to be a vampire hunter. Lincoln accepts and, after a decade of training, travels to Springfield, Illinois. During his training, Sturgis tells Lincoln that the vampires in America descend from Adam, a vampire who owns a plantation in New Orleans with his sister, Vadoma. Sturgis also tells Lincoln of the vampire's weakness, silver, and presents him with a silver pocket watch. In Springfield, Lincoln befriends shopkeeper Joshua Speed, and meets Mary Todd. Though Sturgis warned him not to form any close relationships, Lincoln develops romantic feelings for Mary. Lincoln successfully finds and defeats Bartz. Before dying, Bartz reveals that Sturgis is also a vampire. Lincoln confronts Sturgis, who reveals that, several years ago, he was attacked and bitten by Adam. Because Sturgis' soul was impure, he became a vampire, and that prevented him from harming Adam or any other vampire, since only the living can kill the dead. Sturgis has since been training vampire hunters, hoping to destroy Adam. Disappointed, Lincoln decides to abandon his mission. However, Adam learns of his activities and kidnaps Johnson to lure Lincoln into a trap at his plantation. Adam captures Lincoln and tries to recruit him, revealing his plans to turn the United States into a nation of the undead. Speed rescues his friends, and they escape to Ohio. Lincoln marries Mary and begins his political career, campaigning to abolish slavery. Sturgis warns Lincoln that the slave trade keeps vampires under control, as vampires use slaves for food, and if Lincoln interferes, the vampires will retaliate. After Lincoln's election as President of the United States of America, he moves to the White House with Mary, where they have a son, William Wallace Lincoln. He eventually signs the Emancipation Proclamation, setting the American Civil War in motion. William is later bitten by Vadoma and dies. Confederate President Jefferson Davis convinces Adam to deploy his vampires on the front lines. Lincoln orders the confiscation of all the silverware in the area and has it melted to produce silver weapons. Speed, believing that Lincoln will lead them to death, defects and informs Adam that Lincoln will transport the silver by train. On the train, Adam and Vadoma attack Lincoln, Sturgis, and Johnson, who have set fire to the upcoming trestle. During the fight, in which Speed is killed, Adam learns that the train holds only rocks. Lincoln reveals that Speed's betrayal was a ruse to lure Adam into a trap. Lincoln uses his watch to stab Adam, killing him, and the three escape the train before it explodes. Meanwhile, Mary and the ex-slaves have transported the silver to Gettysburg through the Underground Railroad. The now leaderless Confederate vampires stage a final, massive assault and are met head-on by the Union. Armed with their silver weapons, the Union soldiers destroy the vampires and win the war. A few months later, on April 14, 1865, Sturgis tells Lincoln that the remaining vampires have fled the country. Sturgis unsuccessfully tries to convince Lincoln to allow him to turn Lincoln into a vampire, so that he can become immortal and continue to fight vampires. That night, John Wilkes Booth kills Lincoln. In modern times, Sturgis approaches a young man at a bar in Washington, D.C. as he once approached Lincoln. The movie ends here. See you in the next videos.